Question of housing asylum seekers is a thorny one, and it has exercised the passions and the minds of many people up and down the country. There's an interesting High Court decision there in the last couple of days. I'm reading from the Irish Times. The report is by Fiachra Gallagher. The High Court has blocked the bid of some residents to challenge the use of a hotel for housing asylum seekers in the Merriman Hotel in Kinvara, County Galway. The residents wanted permission to take a case over the government's decision to accommodate 98 people there. The High Court has refused the application, however, to the County Galway residents to mount this challenge to the government's decision to house international protection applicants at the hotel. Kinvara residents Ruth Sexton, Mary Boyce, Chris Hartnett, Dalton and Paul Collins had asked the High Court for permission to challenge the decision from March to place up to 98 people in the village's Merriman Hotel, which is home at present to about 50 Ukrainians. The Merriman Hotel has accommodated international protection applicants since 2019, but the residents said that the government's decision in March of this year constituted a fresh designation of the building as international protection accommodation. In designating a place as an accommodation centre, the Minister for Integration was obliged to consider the public interest under a statutory instrument provided for in the European Community's Reception Conditions Regulations 2018. That argument did not hold sway with Miss Justice Marguerite Bulger, however. The resident said the Minister breached this obligation in his alleged designation of the building in March. Miss Justice Marguerite Bulger said the decision was not a fresh designation of the premises, so the statutory instrument did not apply. The hotel was clearly designated in 2019 when international protection applicants were first accommodated there, she said. The judge said that she wasn't satisfied the residents had presented arguable grounds on which their case would succeed. She said that the Minister was not legally obliged to consult residents or prepare an assessment of how his decision might affect local businesses, the availability of a local venue for family events, or the availability of social services where a premises has already been designated as international protection accommodation. So this is the whole question, this is the whole argument being made by many local groups, local residents, about the loss of, for example, a hotel, maybe the only hotel in the place, in the area, where social events, first communions and weddings and birthday parties and so on might be held. And they were making the argument about the availability of a local venue and the loss of it with the designation for international protection applicants. Miss Justice Bulger said the government's decision was mainly grounded on the state's obligation to provide accommodation to those seeking asylum. So that's an obligation imposed on the government by international law. She said that the residents accept that the state has a legal obligation to provide accommodation for applicants for international protection, but seem to ask the court to prioritise their personal interest in having a hotel in their locality to accommodate tourists and provide a local venue for their family events over the state's attempt to comply with those national, European and international obligations, she said. So Miss Justice Marguerite Bulger wasn't accepting that argument that the residents' wishes in having a local venue for local events should be a priority over the state's obligation to provide accommodation for international protection applicants. Miss Sexton, Miss Boyce, Mr. Hartnett, Dalton and Mr. Collins had sought to bring the proceedings against the Minister for Integration and the Minister for Justice, Home Affairs and Migration, but Miss Justice Marguerite Bulger did not grant them their application. They have been refused permission to bring some sort of an application to prevent the government, and that's in relation to the Merriman Hotel in Kinvara, County Galway. And this report is from Fiachra Gallagher in the Irish Times. Hope you find the video useful. Thanks a lot.